My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big ROAS man. Then he just kept saying things like, the bigger the ROAS, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means calculating a return on ad spend. One thing's for sure, I'll be known as the ROAS man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Welcome to Storylines Live, the only podcast that explores the meaning and the power of the most important story in business, the one that answers why somebody would buy from you, work for you, invest in you, or partner with you. This is the story that stands above all the others because it defines the very character and nature of an organization. At WordWrite, we call this your capital S story. In each episode of Storylines Live, we feature guests who have great insights on business storytelling, who can share their experiences and key learnings to help you and your organization do a better job of sharing your capital S story to deliver remarkable results. Today, we're honored to have Danielle Fette of FetTech as our guest. Danielle is passionate about transforming healthcare through regenerative medicine. Boy, I can't wait to talk about that, Danielle, and innovative medical devices. As co-founder and CEO of FetTech, Danielle's dedicated her career to creating FDA-cleared products that support natural healing and improve patient outcomes. Danielle has a strong foundation in science, more than 25 years in the medical device industry. She bridges patient care and innovation to develop solutions that truly make a difference. By collaborating with leading surgeons, research institutions, and government initiatives, she's proud to help shape the future of regenerative medicine. Danielle's mission is simple: improve lives, create a healthier future for all. Danielle, welcome to Storylines Live.
Hi, this is going to be fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I'm so excited to chat with you in this episode. We're doing several episodes with healthcare leaders, and as soon as I learned of your story, Danielle, I knew right away that I wanted to have you on the podcast. I think you have so much to share that'll really benefit our audience. So before we dig into all that, is there anything in your background that I missed or that you'd like to highlight for our audience?
Something that I always think is significant is that I am dyslexic. So
Yeah.
reading and writing is really hard for me. And I say that because I have a lot of grit, and it was not an easy path to pursue medicine, even though as a young child, I was like, I want to be in medicine so badly. I love everything about helping people heal, but people laughed at me and they said, okay, well, you can't take tests. So that's kind of hard to get into medical school. So I took a really traditional path to get here. But I just want to share with the audience, if you really have a passion and you feel like you have a purpose, there's a back door. There's always a way to accomplish what you want, just with a lot of grit.
Wow, that's really amazing. And we definitely want to chat more about that because before starting the company with your husband, you were a nurse, right?
Yeah. So I got into university because I played lacrosse. And then once I was in school, even though I was, quote, pre-med biology and chemistry, I kind of talked my way through professors verbally giving me tests. And I knew like that's how I got through college, but there was no way I could take MCATs and go to medical school or pursue any graduate school because of my inability to read and write. So I went to a professor one day and I'm like, what do I do? Like, can I please get into this nursing program? And they let me get into the nursing program. But while I was on the hospital floor, I just realized like the amount of detail that nurses have to pay attention to and following the rules and everything that I'm not good at is what nurses have to do. I'm a really big picture thinker, beat to my own drum, like to figure things out and get creative. So I felt very held back. And then I got into a clinical job with a medical device company. So I bridged from nursing on the floor to being a nurse with a big medical device company where I was in the OR educating on surgeons on the cutting edge technology and how to like put implants into the brain for Parkinson's. And so I got into medical device really early on, like probably a year out of school.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, we definitely want to chat more about that. I think that's fascinating. You know, one of the reasons we do the podcast is because of our belief in this concept of the capital S story. And before we segue into your background and your personal story, uh, for FetTech right now, we say there's four questions that are our primary questions in defining your story. Why would somebody buy from you, work for you, invest in you, or partner with you? In the evolution of your company that you've founded with your husband, which of those is most important to you folks right now?
Partnering for sure, because my husband and I are really good at developing the most innovative products. We stay in
Hmm.
our lane that way. Like we know how to advance technology, and it's very special to be able to get something FDA cleared. It's not something that's easy to do. But then we partner with the people that can help bring it to the patients as fast as humanly possible. So whether that's contract manufacturing, contract attorney work, we're really
Hmm.
good at outsourcing, and we set up the company like that very specifically, like for a very we're very deliberate in the way we set up the company.
So that Danielle, that makes you more nimble in that regard, right? I mean, you think of a traditional medical device companies, and for those of our listeners who've been in hospitals, you can walk a floor and there's big names of companies that are on every second piece of equipment or whatever. And your point is that they've built a lot of that stuff in house or whatever. They may have thousands of employees, and you folks are experts at partnering with the resources you need in order to get the same results.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was most frustrating to both my husband and I working for others is that we would have these visions or ideas on how to tweak products to help more patients or to help a different population of patients.
Right.
But the red tape of corporate America with all the layers and all the personalities, it would take forever to come to fruition. And half the time they were shot down by the board. So that was very frustrating when you can make a difference in someone's life and that's someone's mom or someone's son, or we're all going to be patients one day is my motto. It's like, it was hard to sleep at night feeling so handcuffed. So one of our goals when we established FetTech, our company, was to make it as lean as possible so we could move things really quickly and
Hmm.
not have to go through layers of meeting and politics and deal with all of that. We knew the more lean we were, the faster we could execute our vision.
So tell the audience a little bit more about that process, Danielle. You and your husband, and maybe you can just share a little bit about your husband and his background. There was something that was driving you to create your company rather than to be working for a large medical device maker, right? So what was it that caused you folks to take this path?
Well, when I met my husband, this was like 2005. We had met through mutually wanting to help a plastic surgeon heal a really rare disease. And
Wow.
we met with the mutual love to want to help this patient. And he was the one that his name was on the patents, and he developed the products that my teams would introduce to the clinicians. And he was the first one I ever met in corporate America that I was like, wow, not only do you get it, like you really care. You care so much the way I do, because we were meeting on weekends and at weird times and going into this office, like no matter what it took to heal this patient, we were totally invested. And he wasn't looking at it like, well, for the time I'm spending on this one patient, I could be helping 1,000 others. We were just so focused, and
Mhm.
we had such a mutual respect for each other. And everything I didn't know about the business, he would enlighten and share with me. And I'm like, wow, if I had known that, if corporate America just didn't say no to my ideas, but explain the reasoning as to why they were shooting them down from like a regulatory or legal perspective, I would have felt so much more satisfied. And the same
Right.
thing, the shoe on the other foot. He's like, well, if I knew why the reps and clinicians were asking for products to be tweaked or packaging to be changed so that they could fit more product on a shelf, that would make more sense to me. Like when reps just email and say, change the packaging. So together, it was just so fun to talk about visions and talk about how we could tweak things and help more people. And working for others, we eventually fell in love and kind of sold our souls to another company,
Mm.
which ended in really bad terms because this company, like many, answered to a board. And they were willing to do things that were against my morals and values and against my husband's moral and values. So we left on bad terms. And we said to ourselves, you know what? We're never going to answer to other people because we care differently than what we've been exposed to working at some of these other companies. And there's a way to do the right thing and do really well in life and for everyone to benefit. But the only way for us to execute our visions and not only like the board only wanted to sell stuff in the same sandbox that everyone else was playing in because that was a sure thing. That was revenue that they could pitch to the public that everyone would say, yes, like a hernia repair, like lots of companies are already there and there's tons of money to be made, but they didn't want to hear about the smaller populations of people we wanted to help because they were looking at revenue. So when we started FetTech, it was just so special to us because not only did we know we could invent amazing products, but our mission was to help populations where big companies just did not want to, and they didn't want to focus their time and effort there.
Danielle, that is just such a great summary of the story of you and your husband and how you came together to form FetTech. How does that story help you folks grow the business?
I think tremendously. In fact, I think it's more important for people to hear our story than for me to pitch our products from a credibility perspective. Like we didn't do a lot of companies get a lot of investors together and say, we're going to start a medical device or biotech or pharma company. There's a lot of money in this space. Now let's hire the right people. And now let's find a product we can sell. My husband and I said, we're so darn good at what we do. And between the two of us, we can do what more companies do with a lot of people and personnel behind them. And we don't know how we're going to do this, but we believe in ourselves so much that we're going to just take that leap of faith and figure it out as we go along. Because when you have a product that is that good and you can walk into a hospital and say, give me your hardest patient to heal, the one that's keeping the whole hospital ICU up at night because you don't know what else to do, and you can heal that patient, it's like it kind of speaks for itself. So, you know, for us, like everything we've done up until now has not been easy, but it's been natural.
That's great. And you've kind of already answered my next question, but I think our audience would benefit from you teasing it out a little bit more. What's your take on storytelling? Obviously, we have our concept of our company, the capital S story, but what's your take on storytelling and how you use it in growing FetTech?
I've always prided myself on being like the gift of gab because I've had to rely on that for people to trust me or to validate my place in the world because reading and writing is so hard. Like I couldn't hide behind my grades or I couldn't hide behind, you know, an email. My strength is speaking to people, but I think it is interesting how the business world, the podcast world really focuses on storytelling. To me, it's more of a natural thing. I want to be authentic, and whether I'm parenting or in a relationship or business, I think storytelling is everything. If you don't have authenticity and trust with people, what else do you have? Like to represent yourself in the way that you are proud of and adequately represent yourself is so important because at the end of the day, companies are going to come and go, products are going to come and go. The only thing you're left with is like yourself and your soul and feeling proud of that. So to have the confidence to share that with others is super important. And then you'll attract the right people you're supposed to be collaborating with.
Wow, that is so well said, Danielle. Thanks for sharing that. You know, in our own philosophy of storytelling, we often say there's three critical elements to success. Number one is authenticity. And that is certainly true in the healthcare arena. It's so hard to understand and know sometimes what treatment is right, what regimen is going to be best. Sometimes even when you're dealing with doctors, which one is most credible, right? And that's one of the reasons why we focus so much on authenticity. And then related to that, we always say you have to have a fluent storyteller. And what we mean by that is in healthcare, if God forbid, I need to have a very complicated procedure. Do I want to talk to the CEO of the hospital to evaluate which hospital to use? No, I want to talk to the doctor. So you need to be talking to the right person, or you need to have the right person sharing the story, right? And then this is also so true in healthcare. There was a study done a few years ago of healthcare investors, and more than 60% of the investors said that the companies they were trying to invest in didn't do a good job of accurately or appropriately engaging with audiences to tell their story. And that's the third principle is engagement. It's like, I can tell you what I do, but if you don't understand what I just said, what good is it, right? So you need to make sure that you're engaging the audience you're trying to reach, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is knowing your audience. I mean, it's one thing if you can tell your story, but if you sound like a canned recording, that's not going to be helpful. So, in fact, if I did walk into a hospital as a patient, whether I was talking to a janitor or the CEO or a physician, I would know what questions to ask to get the information I needed, and I would know what to share so that they would trust me to give me the information I needed. So, for example, the CEO, I would want to know about like their formularies and how they decide to bring product into the hospital, because you can be talking to the best doctor in the world, but they may only have access to whatever products that hospital is bringing in. If I was talking to a janitor, I would want to know what everyone on the floor is saying about this doctor. Well, how does he treat you? What's he really like? So depending on who your audience is, it's really important to convey yourself and your message. It doesn't mean change who you are, but make it relevant to getting to where you need to be with that conversation.
So true. It's so well said. Folks, we're going to take a quick break for this message, and we'll be right back with Danielle Fette of FetTech talking about the power of storytelling and regenerative medicine.
My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big ROAS man. Then he just kept saying things like, the bigger the ROAS, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means calculating a return on ad spend. One thing's for sure, I'll be known as the ROAS man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Welcome back, folks, to Storylines Live, the only podcast that explores the power and the meaning of the most important story in business, the one that answers why somebody would buy from you, work for you, invest in you, or partner with you. Word right, we call that your capital S story. In this episode, we are visiting with Danielle Fette of FetTech, and we're talking about regenerative medicine, power storytelling and regenerative medicine. So, Danielle, for our audience, can you give an explanation of how you help your clients? What is the primary mission of FetTech?
FetTech's mission is to invent medical devices that are cleared by the FDA in regenerative medicine that help patients heal better and faster. So to tackle a variety of disease states and explore illnesses that no other treatment has been able to help, and do it in an all-natural way. So instead of slapping a Band-Aid or just going right to cutting, how can we help the body heal itself and replace or repair the damage in an all-natural way?
That's fascinating. Can you give the audience an example of one of your products or solutions and just a brief description of how it works?
Well, we invented what's called the multi-tissue platform. And basically we tissue engineer multiple tissues to give a lot of biomolecules, all the essential stuff that your body naturally has in its body, but we put it to the injury all at one time. So it tricks your body to heal differently. So for example, like if you were injured, your body, if you're healthy enough to heal, your body goes through inflammatory response, which is pain, redness, and then it forms scar tissue. Scar tissue is literally just a patch so that it protects you from getting an infection. So we hear scarring and we're like, but it's actually like the most beautiful thing because it protects yourself. The product we invented would signal to your body to heal differently, not going through inflammatory, and then don't form scar tissue. And instead, let's replace and remodel whatever's injured. And instead of putting outside stem cells into the body, we're actually telling your own body, bring stem cells in, and then we're giving the tools and instructions your body would need to regenerate and heal. So right now we have two, and that's our platform. So that's the technology we invented. And then from that technology, we make different ways to apply the product. So our first FDA-cleared product was a powder, which is cleared for wound care. So we do a lot of burn, trauma, major accidents, chronic wounds. And then from there, we saw such incredible success that we always wanted to make the powder into a liquid form.
Yes.
And we're the first company that was able to achieve that. So now in liquid form, we're able to do a lot of other projects that say, what happens if you inhale this? How can we help the lungs from forming fibrosis? Or what if you inject it into various organs? And can we grow organs in a lab? Do cells grow in our material? So there's a lot of 3D printing to create, hearts and tracheas. There's a lot of other things we can do now that we've made the first liquid ECM, extracellular matrix.
Wow. Danielle, congratulations. That is really quite an achievement. And now, is the liquid form in the process of FDA approval, or do you already have it?
We got the liquid form was cleared,
Mhm.
I think April this year. So like earlier on in 2024.
That's great.
And that's called Reagil.
Regenerative, great. And for the listeners that know the FDA process, it's a marathon. It's not
Yeah.
even get approved.
Yeah, it's not. And for someone like myself, that's immediate gratification everything. I've really had to learn to have my patience, and my husband has trained me on the scientific end that things take forever. So I have really learned how to embrace patience.
As a co-founder, we should probably give the audience a little bit about your husband. What's his background in training?
He's a chemical engineer by trade. And although he's a year younger than me, I laugh. I'm like, they didn't even have biomechanical, like, they didn't even have this kind of tissue engineering when he was in school.
Wow.
So he did chemical, which is the hardest engineering, and he got right into regenerative medicine. So most of the quote competitors or other, I don't even call them competitors, the other regenerative products used in the hospital, he helped develop. And we just made this one better. I call it's like the 2.0 version.
Love that. That's awesome. And your husband's name is
Clay. So we co-founded the FetTech together,
right.
and we pretty much talk morning and night about work, as my kids will tell you. And it's just great because from regulatory to patents to FDA pathway to clinical studies, everything that I was never exposed to, that's his wheelhouse. And then everything after it's cleared, how to introduce this to hospitals, being on the clinical floor, partnering with distribution teams, that's my wheelhouse. So together we kind of make the perfect yin and yang to the company.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you are so right. I mean, you need to have both ends of the spectrum there in order to make it work, right? And that's one of the unique aspects of healthcare, right? Because as you shared in the episode earlier, it's about caregiving. It's about taking care of people, right? It's also about science and making sure that things work. Daniel, what brings you the most satisfaction in your work?
Obviously helping people heal. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm a magician, to be able to walk into a hospital and say, every hospital has a patient that keeps doctors or like the floor clinicians up at night. They may have a huge open abdomen that's infected, and they're sitting there for months saying, what are we going to do with this patient? Everything else has failed on them. So to know I can go in with confidence based on treating tens of thousands of patients and say, I know this can't hurt this patient, and I have yet to not been able to heal anyone, and to use the product and then see tears of miracles, or like, doctors would put their arm on me like, I didn't really believe in you, but I didn't have a choice. And I believed in the fact I couldn't help a patient. But when you told me this was going to heal this wound that was, had gangrene and an infection that's really severe, I don't know if I bought into it, but I didn't know what else to do. And then they kind of look at me like, tell me more about your product again. And where else can we use this in the hospital? And so that to me is like the most incredible satisfaction ever. And then from a corporate business perspective, like the non-clinical side, I am a very much like big picture thinker. I have big visions, and so does my husband. So to be able to collaborate and discuss these visions and then watch them creatively come and really cleverly figure out how to execute our visions is really fun. I mean, there's times I cry and it's really hard. We I make mistakes every day.
Yes.
But to learn the ins and the outs and to reflect back and be like, wow, we've come really far is so satisfying. And then to be able to affect everyone else that's been on this journey with us, like our family, our employees, it's just such a gift to be able to give back to those people as well.
That is just really awesome. what you just shared there, Danielle. You and I were talking before we started recording the episode about patients and the importance of patient stories. Are you able to share a success story or two that sticks in your mind from all the patients you've worked with that kind of is an example?
I mean, I have so many, from a neonate open abdomen, baby was born with their thin skin in the stomach prematurely, so their intestines are hanging out. And usually hospitals don't like to try products on neonates or pediatrics because most products are not even approved. So there's a liability there. But this baby was going to most likely not make it. And I mean, I swell up, like I get teary eyed every time I think of this patient. But we were able to save the baby's life after 7 days. The abdomen closed, and I'll never forget the parents hugging me. And I was like, this is what I want to do in life. No matter how hard the road is, and no matter how many times we've hit rock bottom financially, trying to build up our company, this is what it's really all about. So that was my first time, like my big aha, like, wow, this feels really awesome to be able to have a product like this. But another fun story is the doctor I mentioned earlier, that's how I met my husband. She was the first, she believed in our product. She believed in us. So when we got FDA clearance for one of our products, she was the first we gave samples to. But usually doctors can't use products till it's approved in the hospital system. And there's a process to getting a new product approved. So we dropped it off at her office and we said, hey, listen, if you ever have a chance to use this, we love your feedback because we trust what you're going to tell us, good, bad, or indifferent. I want to know how the product performs for you. And then the news station called and said, we want to do a story on your magic powder, but we need a physician and we need a patient. And we had just launched. I mean, we were like 3 weeks post approval. So I'm like, I honestly don't know. I don't have anyone, but I don't want to shoot down like the national news. So we called her and we said, listen, I know this sounds crazy. Is there any patient you can try this on? And we explained to her what was going on. And she said, you're not going to believe this. I'm the surgeon, but I was the patient. We're like, wait, what? I haven't talked to you in 2 months. We're dear friends. She said, yes, she's a plastic surgeon because her mom had breast cancer, like the most elite trained. She had a mastectomy and she had a wound on her breast that would not heal. And they told her she was going to have surgical revisions. And she happened to use our powder, took pictures. She did not need any other surgeries. It healed so beautifully, no scarring. And so that was our news story. But it's just kind of crazy how it came full circle because I met my husband through helping her and then we helped her. And then, with the help of her, we were back on the news. And when anything that's on the news goes viral and brings attention to your product. So it was a really cool story.
That's why we do podcasts, right, Daniel?
Yeah.
For that morality. Yeah, well, that is a great story too. Thank you for sharing that. I guess if there is karma in the world, there you go. Yeah, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's been such a delight to spend time with you, Danielle. To you and Clay, I wish you the best success with the company. Amazing story and great work that you're doing. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you think our audience would benefit?
I would say that in healthcare, there's a lot of good human beings that are just doing the best that they can. But even as a patient, it's really important to know that we're all humans, though. So do your own due diligence and don't be afraid to speak up and be your own advocate. And you have to listen internally to how you're feeling. Something's not feeling right. No matter what healthcare providers tell you, you have to go with that gut feeling and keep exploring and keep pushing because unfortunately, healthcare is a little broken right now. So you have to be your own advocate and do your own research and not be afraid to speak up and ask the questions to go where you need to be to protect yourself as a patient.
Excellent advice. Thank you for sharing that, Daniel. How can folks best reach you?
Well, as my 12-year-old says, Mom, have you ever Googled yourself? Which I hadn't until the other night. But Danielle Fette, I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. I would say I'm horrible with email and phone calls, but I do the best I can on social media. I manage my own social media. So if you write out, I do the best I can to get back to everybody. If I don't get back to you, don't get upset. I get hit up a lot every day, but I will do my best.
And folks, in addition to the show notes, with the company and other information, Danielle and Clay have a great team, and I'm sure they'll get back to you. Danielle, once again, thank you for being on this episode of Storyline Live. It's a great pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Folks, thanks for listening. Appreciate every listener at Storylines Live, the only podcast that explores the power in the meeting, the most important story in business, the one that answers why somebody can buy from you, work for you, invest in you. We'll see you next time.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.